You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one on one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical, tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 970. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. So excited to be hanging out with you today. Over the last 2 weeks, we have had a lot going on. We had Level Up Week, where we hosted over 16 different webinars, panels, experts talking about everything private practice. From the moment you think to yourself, I want to launch a private practice, all the way through group practice, leaving group practice, building audiences beyond with whatever your specialty is. And then last week, we opened up our memberships for Next Level Practice, Group Practice Launch, and Group Practice Boss. So those are open. We're onboarding people now, getting people into that community. So really always brings a lot of excitement into the community when we open up those memberships. And I'm really excited today to talk memberships, and not so much from a, hey, y'all listening need this help, come join me, but to talk to someone else that has a membership that's also a therapist. So I'm talking with Jane Travis today, and I'm really excited because Jane was a counselor for 14 years and knows how hard it can be to attract clients. Now she's helped hundreds of other therapists to grow a profitable practice out of their passion. She runs the Grow Your Private Practice membership, produces the Grow Your Private Practice show, podcast, and was author of the Grow Your Private Practice book. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Hi, Joe. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, I always love talking to other podcasters, other consultants, because there's not a ton of us that have followed the path that you and I have both followed. So would love to just start with, tell me about your clinical career. When you were a counselor for 14 years, what was that like? What were you doing? Take us back.
Well, it's such a long time ago now. I first started in 2005. So when I started, it was roughly the same time as Facebook started. So that's how long ago it was. So it makes me feel very
Oh,
old when I say that. It's like,
I
I,
I started in 2004, so whatever you say
oh,
about yourself's
wow.
true of me too.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of we've got some similarities in our background, really. So I think I'm the same as you. Um, I was well, I don't know. You can tell me. I was a counsellor, loved being a counsellor, but I'd already had a couple of part-time businesses. So when I went into learning about counselling, I knew that I wanted to have my own private practice. I'm one of those people that's not really a very good employee, so I'm
Mm.
far better at working for myself. So when I started my private practice, I loved it. There's loads that I loved about it. I love the marketing side because I love the challenge. I love to see the growth. Um, I love oh, I'm sorry, I'm tripping over my words. I love the creativity. I love the fact that you can be extremely creative when it comes to marketing your practice. And so I just loved it. I loved seeing the clients, and I loved doing the learning about how to market, and it was great. And then after a while, I started a local networking group for other therapists in the area. I started to become really aware of the fact that not everybody felt like me. Not everybody was delighted at the thought that they could then, do their marketing and use that creativity and see it as a really positive challenge. And I think there are real differences, Joe. I don't know if you feel the same, but there are massive differences, in my opinion, to the way American people do marketing and the way that people in the UK do marketing. So I think there are lots of similarities, but there are also some quite big differences as well. Would you agree with that?
I don't think that I have as strong of an understanding of kind of the nuances of the UK market. So tell me what you see as the major differences between the way that we market here in the US compared to the UK.
Well, I think when I first started out, there were two ways that you could be a counsellor. One was you got a job, so you were employed, and often you'd work in the NHS, um, or for a charity or something like that. And the other was to take private clients. We didn't really have like insurance the same way that you in America have, so we didn't really have that. So there was those two things. So when people did their training to be a counsellor, they would kind of assume they'd be able to get a job. And that just wasn't the case for a lot of people because the jobs just didn't really happen. Partly because of the fact that therapy was still relatively new back at that time. Like I say, I'm quite old now, but therapy was still quite a new thing. But also therapy was it came under the heading of being dealt with by the National Health Service, so it was kind of free. So you would go and be employed by the NHS or a charity, and people would come and get like free counselling like that. So it's a little bit different in that respect. And
So
the
would you say then that there was sort of a mindset of, well, I can get it for free. Why would I go work with someone privately?
Absolutely, absolutely. But the mindset as well for the counsellors has, I think for many counsellors, there's been a real problem with mindset regarding money, insofar as feeling bad about charging people to get the help that they need to feel better. Because over here, obviously, we've got the NHS. People can go to the NHS or used to be able to go to the NHS and get some help. And so that I think there's been a mindset issue with it. Well, I can't speak for all therapists, but certainly for me, I really had a problem with the idea of, with the whole money mindset thing of, right, I'm asking people who really need some help to pay me money, and it didn't really feel very comfortable. And like I say, I know that I'm not the only person to feel like that. Um, so that was one of the things that was very difficult for people when they're first starting out, and I think it can still be a problem for people when they're first starting out. That whole idea of the fact that they're running a business rather than they're helping people. So if you're employed, you can see it as helping people because those people come to you, no money crosses hands, and you can sit there and just do your counselling, do your thing. But when it comes to being in private practice, you have to get used to taking payment. You have to get used to charging, and like I say, that can sometimes come across that could be quite difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think that there are a lot of overlaps with the US. I think that most of the schools still are teaching, money mindset that is like, oh, you're not going to make a ton of money at this, but it'll feel really good to be a therapist or a social worker. Instead of saying those are not mutually exclusive things. If you make money, that doesn't automatically mean that you also don't care about the world. And so I do see that. I do think that there's probably some of those systemic frameworks that, as healthcare has become more accessible and cheaper for people, especially around counseling. It's like my daughters see a therapist and I see a therapist, and I think it's $30 out of pocket per time. So um, I think there is that side of private pay where people have to figure out why am I doing private pay? Does my area have good quality counselors that are taking insurance or not? And there's a lot of different factors that go into that. When you made that transition from working as a clinician into doing more consulting and sharing, like what did that look like for you? Was it that you kind of were doing both concurrently, or was there kind of a hard stop? Like, how did you start to dip your toes into consulting?
Yeah. Well, I never wanted to be a full-time counsellor. I never wanted to just be a full-time counsellor. I find it's a really difficult job. I find that it's very taxing, listening to people's pain and heartbreak and you know um, cruelty. Listening to those stories, I find quite difficult. So I have to protect myself from that. I have to make sure that I only do a certain amount of that work. But I always wanted, because I love counselling, I love therapy. I wanted to find a job that would kind of go with that I could do alongside my practice work. Um, so I started this therapy network group, and I realised that these people were struggling to do the thing that I loved so much. So I thought, well, how can I help them? So it started off with me helping a couple of people with their website. Um, and then I started to help people with some social media. And then I started a Facebook group, a big free Facebook group that grew really well. And then I realized I tried programs. I put together some programs and I did some coaching. So I tried lots of different things. And I think that's the thing with counseling. As a counselor, we know that working with clients, we do this thing where we're sitting with them or walking with them or online with them. And that's one thing. But the skills that counselors have, the skills that therapists have, are can be used in so many different ways, can't they? And you know this. You this is like your bread and butter, isn't it? Really, helping counsellors to find different ways of making a living at the side of their main counselling work. And so I was like really interested in seeing, where I could go with this. And at that point, it was really, it was memberships were starting to be really popular. So we'd had memberships for a while, but they weren't like they were today. Like everybody's got a membership these days, haven't
Right.
they? But because I was really interested in so many different things. So I was really interested in mindset, and I was really interested in niche, and I was really interested in blogging and social media and content creation and all of those things. Having a membership for me meant that I could look at all those different things and help people with them, because I don't think any of them particularly stand alone. So I started a membership, and that's what I'm still doing. And I enjoy it. It's something I
Mm.
really, really enjoy.
Now, I'm interested when you were launching that, did you already have an audience that was listening to the podcast? Did you launch the podcast concurrently? I'm always interested when people have an idea for something, how much they do audience building first versus concurrently with the launch of the product.
Well, the way I did it, it kind of came about accidentally on purpose, if you like. I knew that I wanted to work with counsellors and help them with their marketing, but I didn't know what form that would take. So whilst I was thinking about it, I started a Facebook group. And I loved my Facebook group, and it grew pretty big. And I had the chance to go in and learn a bit more about the struggles that people were having, and learn a bit more about, ways that I could help, and, just get to know people. So having that Facebook group, I guess, was me, not really thinking about it, but I guess that was me growing an audience. So when I came to the point of thinking, right, now I've got this product, now I've got this membership, I had a whole load of people there that were interested in joining, which really gave me that
Mm.
kickstart. And the podcast probably came 2 years later. So the
Oh,
podcast came
wow.
quite a little while later. Yeah. So I started
So I
off.
want to ask about that jump though, because I've had lots of consulting clients that they have a larger Facebook group. Maybe they have a couple thousand people in it, and it's really engaged. But then they try to launch a product, and their audience doesn't follow them into the product. They just wanted this free Facebook group and didn't want to give any money. What do you think you did well, either in managing the Facebook group or in launching or engaging them as you were building the product? Or like, what do you think you did well that made it so that people did want to sign up for your membership from the Facebook group? Because I feel like that's a challenge oftentimes for people, and it's awesome that you were able to do it. And I want to know why.
Well, a good question. I don't know if I do know why, but I think really it all comes down to, that word passion. I think I just really loved doing it. I really loved having my Facebook group. I really loved thinking about what I was going to share. I used to go live every week. And I just used to love it. And I think if you love something, then it just rubs off, doesn't it? So if I think Facebook groups these days are a very, very different beast, aren't they? They're a lot more difficult to grow and to really make them work. But back in the day when I had mine, and also I think that something that can really help is that being somebody that worked with therapists, you know exactly who your target is. You're either a therapist or you're not. So, there was no ambiguity there about who I worked with. So that meant that any therapist around that was looking for some sort of support, I was a place where they could go. And yeah, I think it's just as, for me, I think it was as simple as the fact I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that people pick up on that, don't they?
Yeah, no, I love that, and I do think that there's a lot that's shifted in the Facebook group world, and there's just so much competing for people's attention these days,
Mm.
and especially on Facebook, it's like you go on there to be on a Facebook group, and next thing you know, you go down some rabbit hole that's completely different. If you're looking for an awesome payroll solution, look no further than Gusto. We've used them for years here at Practice of the Practice. They keep me organized, we know how much taxes we're paying, and it's all done right, and you get pay stubs that look like any other company. Head on over to gusto.com/Joe to learn all about their payroll solutions. There is no reason that you should be worrying about payroll. Do it right. Head on over to gusto.com/Joe. That's GUSTO.com/Joe. So you're helping therapists through this membership. Tell me, what are things that you're seeing that people that are filling up their practices, that are growing their practices, what are they doing that other people aren't?
Well, to me, I think it all comes down to basics, and I think one of the basics is niche. You know, I don't even like the word niche, but niche, knowing who your dream clients are going to be. And I think that when we can get really, really clear on that, then that makes your marketing just so much easier in so many different ways. But the experience that I've had with talking, because niche is one of the things that I love talking about the most. You know, right from before I had a membership, I offered a service called Know Your Niche. And so I worked with people to sort of work out what their niche was. And I loved it. And I still love it. It's still the thing that I find really, really interesting. But for a lot of people, the thought of having a niche can leave them sort of filled with dread because they think, oh, it might mean that I'm going to turn people away, or maybe I'm going to get bored with seeing the same types of clients. And obviously, that's not what happens. It just means that you get to have a better understanding of your clients, which makes it easier for you to attract those clients to you. You're going to have, if you've got that really good understanding, as you know, it's going to just help to build that therapeutic relationship before they even meet you. You know, if they're following you and sorry, don't know what just happened then. I sort of did a little hiccup. If people are following you and reading your blogs or following you on social media and are aware of you, they're starting that therapeutic relationship. They're starting to see that this is somebody that I think I can sit and talk with about my deepest, darkest fears. And it's just that basic of really understanding that good marketing is all about just making sure you're getting the right person to you. I mean, I know it's basic. I know this is like day one in marketing school, but I think for therapists, it's not always as kind of simple as that. They can, people can get people can trip up over, oh, I'm sorry, Joe, I've got lost my train of thought. I think what happens is people struggle with a niche because they don't want to feel as though they're going to push people away, or they worry that they have to be an expert, and they worry that they're going to have to say they're an expert when they're told in their training that that they're not the expert in the counselling room. You know, you're not the expert in the counselling room. The client is the expert in the counselling room. And I think for some people, that feeling that they're not allowed to be an expert can kind of hold them back. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, I hear that whole imposter syndrome so frequently.
Mm,
One thing that I often say to people, and I actually just had this conversation with a consulting client the other day. He's been really struggling in growing his group practice, and we were chatting through just a few different elements. And part of it was that imposter syndrome. And I said to him, in the United States, only 8% of the US has a master's degree, meaning if you're in a room of 100 people, only 8 of you have a master's degree or higher. And some of those might be accountants or lawyers or dentists or doctors. So in any room of 100, the day you graduate, most likely you're the smartest person in the room. And I think that, and I've said that for years. I think that's something that when you think about it that way, that the day you graduate, when you're pre-licensed, when you're limited license, when you're whatever your state or country requires in regards to your first couple of years out of grad school, you still are more competent than 99 out of 100 people, just by having that master's degree in a mental health field. And so to me, then everything else is just icing. If you get EMDR trained, if you get really good supervision, like, of course, we want to be amazing clinically. But that mindset, I totally agree with you that realizing you're already the expert in mental health. Now,
mm.
I do think that the purpose behind what you were saying of the client's the expert in the room, they know themselves better than we ever will know them. And also that idea of saying, like, you should do this, as a therapist, probably not the best way for human motivation. But I think that you're right that it gets lost in then thinking that, the client is the total expert in the room. Now, when you see those kind of mindsets, like, what other mindsets do you see that therapists have that sometimes get in the way of their growth?
Well, obviously there's always the imposter syndrome. That's always there. But I think some of the biggest things are perfectionism, procrastination, little bit of shiny object syndrome. But I think it's just generally self-sabotage. I think it's generally fear. I think there's a lot of fear about being visible. There's a lot of fear about I think sometimes there's fear that peers are going to see them. So a peer might see them, say, on social media and might have an opinion about them. And I also see people very often thinking that they don't know enough. And exactly what you're talking about there is exactly what I'm talking about here, which is you're already an expert in what you're talking about. You might not like the word expert, but you already know so much and you're able to help people so much with what you currently have. I think it's just a fear that you're somehow not going to be good enough. But you don't have to be extraordinary on social media. You don't have to show off. You don't have to be, hey, look at me. You just have to let people know that you understand them and you understand the issues that they're going through. And I personally believe that the more you can totally focus on your potential clients, what they're struggling with, and how you can help them, the more you just focus on them and forget about yourself, really, essentially, that's when it starts to get a little bit easier because it's not about you. When it comes to marketing, it's not about you. You don't have to prove anything. All you have to do is let people see that you're passionate about what you do. So similar to when I had my Facebook group, I didn't have to say, hey, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that. I can help you with this, blah, blah, blah. Didn't have to do that. People could just see that I really loved it. And so that meant that was attractive to them. So it's just that. It's about allowing yourself to let your passion show and to not make it about you. So you're not talking about I did this, I did that, blah, blah, blah. It's looking at like what do they need? What do your clients need? What's going to help them? What are the things they're really struggling with? And what's the ideal outcome? What do they want from counselling? And when you can address those things, those are the things that the clients or potential clients want to hear. They want to hear the fact that you understand the sort of struggles that they're having, that you understand that they feel worried or lonely or stupid or whatever it is, or frightened, all of those things. They want to know that you understand that because then they'll feel comfortable coming to sit with you in a room and talking about the things that they probably have never spoken about to anybody else. And that
Mm.
comes from your passion and the love for what you do. And something I know about counsellors is that they have loads of passion for what they do.
Hmm. Now, when you think about passionate counselors that want to maybe go more national or international, maybe they want to do a membership community around not consulting like what you and I do, but around their niche. So they want to go national with helping single dads, that are raising girls. Like that's me. They want to be able to help, people that are dealing with chronic health issues from a mental health standpoint. What advice would you have for people that are interested in starting some sort of online community or membership?
Um, I suppose the first thing is just being really clear on who it is that you want to serve. You know, doing some research, checking is this something where there are people that want this. Obviously, to have the passion, to have the drive to sort of learn about it and go and make it something that happens. Um, I would also say, oh, what would I say? I would also say make sure that you're prioritizing it. So you're having time to do it, having time to research it and get out there and do it. But for me, I think one of the biggest things when it comes to marketing is content, getting out there, producing content, whether you've got a YouTube channel or a podcast or just blogging, getting out there, getting seen, sharing your stuff, and yeah, just letting people see that you're there and that you can help them.
Mm. Well, the last question that I have is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
What would I want them to know? I've got a saying that I use all the time, and that is action is the antidote to fear. And so many counsellors are kind of trapped in this fear of visibility, fear of not doing it right, all of those things. The only way you can get over it is to actually start taking action, just little tiny little actions, just small things, baby steps. And the more that you do that, the more you're going to lose that fear. But you can only lose that fear by actually dipping your toe in and actually getting out there and doing it. So action is the antidote to fear. Write it down, put it everywhere, and take little, just small actions, and it's going to take you a very, very long way.
Mm-hmm. And Jane, if people want to follow your work, where should we send them?
Right, well, I'm on Instagram. It's at Grow Your Private Practice. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can just search for me there. It's Jane Travis, and it's Jane without a Y. You can check on my website. It's janetravis.co.uk. That's where I've got some blogs and my podcasts, and also listen to the Grow Your Private Practice show as well, where what have I got? I've got 166 podcast episodes now, covering all sorts of things from mindset to niche to, websites. And I've had some fantastic guests on as well. So, if you want to find out. Oh, and also there's my book, the Grow Your Private Practice book. So, I'm all over the place, really. So it'd be fantastic if anybody wanted to come and just say hi. I'd really love that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we have some exciting series coming up. We're going to be doing a number of episodes covering all sorts of different things, private practice this month and next. And then at the beginning of May, I'll be interviewing some people that are also featured in the Harvard Business Review book that I'm going to be featured in. You'll be able to pick that up in airports, Barnes & Noble, online, wherever. We'll have more details on that book that Harvard's putting out. As well, we're going to be doing in May a psychedelic-assisted therapy series. So I've been doing interviews now for that up in May. So make sure that if you're popping into the episodes today, look at some of the ones that just came out. We had some really great episodes that came out in the past month. And so we had like how AI is shaping psychotherapy. That was episode 966. We had one on what is a subpoena, what's an expert witness, and what's a fact witness. That was episode 967. And then how travel, personal growth, and getting a TV show helped a lady named Lisa, episode 968. So all sorts of things that we've been covering. You're going to want to go back into the archives to check those out. Also, we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors. Today's sponsor is Gusto. As a small business owner, taking care of your team and paying your team, it can be tough if you're not using Gusto, that is. Gusto takes the pain out of payroll, benefits, onboarding, and HR tools. Even better, our listeners get 3 months totally for free over at gusto.com/Joe. That's spelled GUSTO.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.